I welcome you once again to my channel Life Without Limit. We've been discussing the essence and the value of time, and we've covered three different series, three parts. Today we shall be looking at part 4 of the essence and value of time. From the previous discussion, we've looked at the 4 ways that we use time. We've talked about how people waste time. We've talked about how people spend time. We've talked about the investment of time and the leverage of time. So today I'll be discussing a different topic. I'll be discussing still on time, and we shall be looking at how we can take advantage of time investment. We spent a lot of time discussing how we can invest our time, talking about the principle of conversion, how we can convert our time, and the 3 ways we can actually convert our time. So today we shall be looking at taking advantage of how we can actually leverage time investment and ways we can go about taking advantage of time investment. We invest time in 3 ways using one principle, and that's called the principle of conversion. I talked about investing time in yourself. I talked about investing time in other people, and also talked about converting your ideas into tangible or intangible products. So right now, how can we actually take advantage of time investment? We've looked at what we should do, but how should we go about doing it? How can we go about achieving? How can we go about investing time in ourselves? How can we go about investing time in people? And how can we go about converting our ideas into products? Well, we shall be looking at one way of doing that today, and that's what I've called the principle of planning. Planning is very, very important. If you want to make use of time, if you want to invest time and get results through investing of time, you must plan. It is very important that you plan. Now, I'll take you to a particular passage in the scripture. They call it the book of wisdom. You don't have to be a Christian. You don't have to believe in the Bible to actually glean wisdom from this book, and it's the book of Proverbs. I'll read Proverbs chapter 6. I'll read from my notes. Proverbs chapter 6, verse 6 to 8. It says, "Go to the ants, O sluggard, consider her ways and be wise." It says, "Without having any chief, officer, or ruler, she prepares her bread in summer and gathers her food in harvest." Now, what is this passage telling us? It says the ant can discern when it is summer. The ant can discern when it is winter. What does the ant do? The ant prepares for the coming of what? Winter. It goes out and does what? Prepares her bread, gathers food in summer, right? It says he prepares her bread in summer and gathers her food in harvest. Why? Because he knows that winter is coming. Why? Because the ant plans ahead. Now that particular verse is telling us that we should go and study the ant. It says, "Go to the ant, O sluggard, consider her ways and be wise." That tells us something, that planning can make you wise. The act of planning itself is wisdom. So if you want to act in a wise way, if you want to act as one that is wise, you cannot do without planning. Now, let's look at why we must plan. Why must we plan? We know that planning is one of the ways that we can actually take advantage of investing time. And planning is one of the ways we can go about investing time. Now, let's look at how or why we should plan. Why should we plan? The first reason why we must plan is because of the nature of time. We've discussed the nature of time in other videos when we talked about that time cannot be stopped. We talked about time it does not wait for anyone. We talked about time cannot be slowed down. If you want to get a full details of our discussion about time, go to our previous video and you listen to the previous video, and you see the characteristics and the nature of time. But you see, one of the reasons why we must plan is because of the nature of time, because it is only through planning that we can take advantage of time. It is only through planning that we can actually seize time. It is only through planning that we can actually use our time well. Planning is what will help us to use our time well. Now, the second reason why we must plan is because of change. Now, we know that change is the only constant thing in life. But you see, I'm going to be dwelling a lot of my time discussing this topic of change. Change is one of the reasons why we must plan. We cannot afford not to plan. Why? Because life is a constant flow of change. Change will happen with or without you. Change will happen with or without you. So the only way that you can manage change is to plan. The only way you can manage change is to plan. Now, let's go straight into some of the characteristics of change. We've looked at the characteristics of time. Let's look at the characteristics of change. The first characteristics of change is that change cannot be resisted. You cannot resist change. Like I said, change will happen with or without you. Now, for example, look at when a child is born. A child grows through phases and becomes an adult. You watching me today, you listening to me today, you were not always like this. You were not always this size. You were not always this height. You were not always this big, right? Change has happened. It's not something you can resist. The second characteristic of change is that you cannot ignore it. You cannot ignore change. Change will happen every time around you. People will change. Circumstances will change. Things will change, whether you like it or not. That is one of the reasons why we must plan. Thirdly, change cannot be rejected. Therefore, you must accept change. Change cannot be rejected. You can't say you want to reject change. Imagine somebody in the office. For example, in my own situation, there was a circumstances where in my company, right, there was a merger. Why? Because the company was going through some turbulent time because of some changes in regulations by the British government. And what happened? Whether we liked it or not, there was a merger and there was a change of the leadership. So you see, in life, change will happen and there is nothing you can do about it. You can't reject change. That's one the third characteristics of change. The fourth characteristic of change, you must adjust to change. If you don't adjust to change, you'll be left behind. If you don't adjust to change, you'll be left behind. Change will happen, so you must adjust to change. You can manage change, but you cannot stop it. Just like time, just as you cannot stop time, you cannot stop change. Change is something that is constant. It is. Time and change are the only constant thing in life. You cannot stop change. Therefore, you must find ways of managing change. And planning is the only way you can manage change. That is why planning is very paramount. That is why planning will help you manage time, because change can be managed by planning. Let's look at another characteristics. You can become a victim of change or manipulate it. Now, it is one or the other. It is either you manipulate change by planning for it, or you become a victim of change if you don't plan for it. So you see, you can either become a victim or a victor. You can either manipulate change or you become a victim of change. And one of the ways that you can use to manipulate change is through planning. One other characteristic is that you can prepare and plan for change. That's the good news about it. Change will happen with or without you, but you see, you can prepare for it and you can plan for it. You can prepare for change through planning. So planning is of the essence. You must understand that for you to manage time, for you to take advantage of time, for you to be able to use time to invest in time, for you to be able to invest in yourself using time, invest time in people, invest time in producing products, you can only do that through planning. Now, let's move ahead. One other thing is this: time and change are inescapable. You cannot escape it. You are living, it's all around you. You're living in time. Time will move whether you move or not. Change will happen whether you change or not, whether you adapt to it or not, whether you accept it or not. Change will happen. So we've seen the characteristics of change and the fact that it is only through planning that you can actually manage change. So that is one of the reasons why we must plan, because change is a reality of life. Change is a fact of life. You understand? You see a lot of people, when they were born, they were growing up, they had the best looks. But look at them today, a couple of years, some of them have grown bald head. That's change. Some of them have added weight. That's change. You understand? So change will happen. Governments will change. Presidents will change. Children will grow up. Companies will change. Change is happening constantly all around us. The only way you can manage change is through planning. Planning. And planning will also help you manage life, because change is a part of life. Change is a part of time. Planning will help you manage change. So now, after looking at the characteristics of change, let's go and see some of the consequences of change and things you should know about change. Let's look at some of the consequences of change and some of the things that you need to know about change. The first thing is this: if you want to make enemies, the quickest way to make enemies is to decide to change. That's one thing you should know about change. Change will always bring resistance. People don't want to change. People love the status quo. So the very day you decide to change, you've earned yourself some enemy. So that's one thing you should know, and you should be prepared for it. But you see, you must adapt to change. You must be willing to change. Whether there are enemies or not, you must do it. Why? Because time will not wait for you. Change will not wait for you. So you must be prepared to deal with the enemies that will come as a result of change. You must be ready to deal with the resistance that will come from people as a result of change. That is the first thing you should know about change. Change will bring resistance. Change will bring enemies. Be ready for them. But you have to change. You have to move with the time. You have to adjust to change. Why? Because time will not wait for you. And if you refuse to change, you will refuse to move with time. And if you refuse to move with time, you have wasted your life. And if you don't want to waste your life, you have to seize a hold of time. And for you to seize a hold of time, you have to move with the times and you have to change. So that's the first thing you should know about time. And that's the first consequences of change. This is the first thing you must know about change. And this is the first consequences you must know about change. The second consequences, or the second thing you must know about change, is this: your success in life will be short-lived if you refuse to change with change. Like I said, change will happen. You must learn how to adjust to change. If you don't, your success, whatever success you have achieved in life, will be short-lived, because things will definitely change. I give this example. Everybody remember Nokia. Nokia, for example, used to control 80 to 90% of the mobile market. The mobile market in Asia, the mobile market in America, the mobile market in Europe, even in Africa. Almost 80% of the market was controlled by Nokia. But what happened? Change happened. And you know what? Nokia did not realize, or Nokia did not move with the time. So mobile phone was going from what you could just use to make phone calls or send texts into something that you can use to take pictures, into something that you can use to browse the web, into something that you can use to read your document. That meant that the phone industry was moving more from hardware to software. Applications was beginning to be the order of the day. But Nokia did not actually see this coming. Rather, they stuck with their old ways of doing things. Android came into the market. A lot of phone manufacturers started jumping on board because they saw the future. They saw the potential of the Android operating system and they bought into it. But Nokia refused to change their Symbian operating system, which was becoming outdated. And before you know it, fast forward down the years, today you don't hear of Nokia. At a time, they closed shop completely. Microsoft tried to buy them over, it didn't work, and they closed shop. Why? Because change happened, but they didn't adjust to change. So you see, that is the same thing with our personal life. If you refuse to adjust to change, it doesn't matter if you're a leader today. It doesn't matter if you are very successful today. It doesn't matter if you're a millionaire today. It doesn't matter if you have money filled in your bank account. If you don't adjust to change, your success will be short-lived. So that's the second consequences of change. Now let's look at the third consequences of change. To change, you must be ready to break away from the familiar ways. You must be ready to break away from the familiar ways without which you will not experience life. Now, the third consequences of change is this, that you must be willing to break away from the familiar ways of doing things. So if you are stuck to the past, if you like the status quo, and you're not ready to change, you'll be ruined. You will not experience life because things will change. I tell you, 10 years ago, there was nothing like social media. Maybe if there was social media then, maybe Facebook was just beginning to come on board. There was nothing like Instagram. There was nothing like Twitter. There was nothing like, say 10, 15 years ago. But today, you can't even imagine life without it. That is what change is. Now, if you are such a person and you are not willing to adopt or adjust yourself to this new way of life, I tell you the truth, you miss out on life. You miss out on a lot of opportunity. We live in the greatest era where it is so easy to make money online. A lot of people work from home 24/7, right? 7 days a week. They provide for themselves. The life is changing. The ways of working is changing. You hear of remote working these days. When I was growing up, when I was working back then, there was nothing like remote working. You must commute to work every single day to go and work. But today you hear the concept of working from home. Why? Change happened. So if you are ready and willing to take a hold of time and make use of time and invest time, change is something you must embrace, because change will happen with or without you. Now let's look at some of the other things you must know about life. Change is the law of life. So those who look to the past or the present are certain to miss on the future. If you are stuck to the past, if you are stuck to the present, and you don't look into the future, change will happen even without you realizing it, and you will be worse off for it. So we should know that change is the law of life. Change is the law of life. Everything changes. Everything. There is nothing on earth that does not change. Everything will change. So you must be ready to change with it. And that is the reason why you cannot afford to live in the past. It doesn't matter what has happened in the past. It doesn't matter what was done to you in the past. It doesn't matter what was said to you in the past. It is all in the past. Leave it there. Leave it there. The past is the past. The past only exists in your mind. The past is an illusion. Just like I said in our previous broadcast, the tomorrow and the past is an illusion. But you see, because of change, because of constant change, tomorrow will always become today. So you must look into the future and tell yourself, what do I want my tomorrow that will become today to be? And begin to plan towards it. Don't get stuck in the past. Don't get stuck in the past. And even the present is not guaranteed. I remember I said that today is the only reality you have. So make good use of it. And you can only make good use of it by taking a hold of time. And the only way for you to take a hold of time is to manage change. And the only way to manage change is to plan. So it is very important that planning must be a part and parcel of your life. Now let's move on. Another thing you should know about change is this. If you refuse to change when change happens, it might lead to death. If you refuse to change when change happens, it might lead to death. I'm not talking of physical death. Yeah, it could lead to physical death, but you see, it could lead to death of what? It could lead to death of your finances. It could lead to death of your relationship. It could lead to death with your association. You understand? For example, the change that is happening in the IT world today is happening in such a rampant state that for those who are not able to catch up, I tell you, in the next 10 years, a lot of your jobs today will be replaced by robots. Today you hear of artificial intelligence. Today you hear of machine learning. Today you hear of robotics. I tell you, a time will come where 50 to 75% of the job as we know it today will be replaced by machines. Are you planning? Are you preparing for the change that will happen? Like in the UK years back, you go into a supermarket, you go into a shopping mall to buy something, you have attendants doing what? Serving you, taking what you buy, registering it, doing the accounting, giving you a change and all that. But you see, a time came when that particular role was replaced by machines. Why? You could get them looked at it. It will save them costs. It will save them running costs. It will save them time. It will generate more revenue. They can afford to work 24 hours a day. Why? Because machines don't get sick. Machines don't make error, don't make mistakes. They hardly are in error. Machines don't forget. Right? Machines are more accurate because whatever you feed into it is what it will feed at. So we saw a period where machines started taking over the counters, started taking over the cashiers. Why? Change happened. We never thought a day will come where you walk into a shop and you don't have to talk to anybody. You buy your stuff, you scan it, and off you go. That's one aspect. Go to filling stations. Nobody serves you in filling stations. You go there, you put in nozzle, you slot in your card, you punch your buttons, and you pay, and you walk out. Even bankers. We used to have a lot of people who work in commercial banks. You go over the teller or over the counter, they attend to you. But today you have ATM machines scattered all over everywhere. You have mobile phones. You carry your bank in your mobile phone. You make deposit, you make transfer. If you want to make deposit today, you go to the bank, there's a machine, you slot in your money and it credits your account. Why? Change. Change is happening fast. So how well are you adjusting to change? For you to adjust to change, I remind you, planning. Plan your life. So what am I saying? You must adjust to change. If you don't want change to leave you behind, if you don't want life to leave you behind, you must know how to manage change. And planning is the key way to manage change. Now, that brings me to the topic about what types of change do we have. You see, there are different types of change. And I've been able to identify 3 types of change, and we'll go over it briefly. First and foremost, there is a change that happens around us. This is the kind of change that you actually don't have control over, and that is why you must plan. Like I mentioned, robots, artificial intelligence, machines are actually taking over a lot of jobs. We are beginning to see driverless cars, where cars drive themselves. You don't need drivers anymore. We are beginning to see drones. We are beginning to see automated machines everywhere. A time is coming where people will lose their jobs and be replaced by machines. What are you doing about it? Start to plan towards that day. That's one of the change that happen around us. The second type of change is the change that happens outside of us. Now, what am I talking about? I'm talking about your physical body. The change that happens outside of you. You are growing by the day. Every day you sleep and you wake up, you grow one day older. Every minute that passes, you grow 1 minute older. Every hour that passes, you grow 1 hour older. Change is happening outside of you, and you still do not have control over that. Very soon you'll be 50, very soon you'll be 60, very soon you'll be 70, very soon you'll be 80. Are you taking good care of yourself? Are you planning that change? Are you eating healthy? Are you exercising? Are you planning towards your 50th? Are you planning towards your 60th? Are you asking yourself, how do I want to look when I'm 60? How do I want to look when I'm 70? How do I want to look when I'm 18? If considering, hoping and believing that you live long to that age. Everybody wants to live long. Nobody wants to die. But what I'm saying is that change is happening, whether you like it or not. What plan are you actually making towards that change? What plan are you making? How are you taking good care of your body right now? That is the second type of change, the change that happens outside of you. The third type of change is the change that happens inside of you. And the good news about this is that you can actually initiate it and you can manage it. The change that happens on the inside of you happens where? In your mind. It happens in your mind, critically in your mind, primarily in your mind. There are a lot of change happening inside of you, metabolically, physiologically. There are a lot of change happening inside of you. But you see, the primary change that happens inside of you is the change that happens in your mind. Because to a large extent, scientists will tell you that your mind actually controls the regulation of your body. So what preparation towards managing the change that happens on the inside of you? What initiative are you taking? Are you planning towards it? How, for example, for a lot of people who are, like, I would say, not use the word addict, but a lot of people are in a situation whereby they are so addicted to a couple of things. Now, the question I'm asking you is, you know that smoking kills. You know that the drug kills. You know that that habit kills. Now, what are you actually doing to regulate your body? What are you doing to regulate on the inside of you? We've seen the damages that smoking, for example, does to the lungs. You know that. So what initiative are you taking to actually control that, to actually manage that? So you see, change will happen around us, change will happen outside of us, and change will happen inside of us. But the only way you can actually manage the things you cannot control is to plan for them. And the only way you can manage the change that happens on the inside of you is to start by the renewal of your mind. There's a place in the scripture that says that do not be conformed to the world, but be transformed by the renewing of your mind. You see, transformation, which is change, will happen only in you by the renewing of your mind. So you must start to renew your mind. After looking at the different types of change, let's look at how we can actually initiate the change within us. Let's look at how we can initiate change within us. Like I've mentioned, the first way is by renewing your mind. How do you renew your mind? You see, we've grown up with a set of beliefs that are wrong, beliefs that are limiting your potentials. You've heard a lot of lies. People have lied to you, and you bought those lies, and you are lying to yourself. You are telling yourself you cannot do this. I cannot do that. I am this way. I am a shy person. I'm a timid person. I'm not intelligent. Oh, I don't know maths. Oh, I don't know English. Everything you are saying to yourself is as a result of the beliefs that you have grown up with, the set of beliefs that you have embraced. And how do those beliefs come? By the information that was fed to you while you were growing up. Now, one of the ways you can actually change that, one of the ways you can actually come out of that limiting set of beliefs is what? By renewing your mind. And how can you do that? Begin to feed yourself with new information. You see, the mind is like a software. I tell people, I said the mind is like your computer. Your computer has a hardware and a software, right? You install a software on the hardware. Now, if for any reason the computer software gets infected by virus and gets corrupted, what happens? A lot of the time, they'll tell you uninstall that software and reinstall a new software. Your mind is exactly like that. Your mind is the hardware. The information you feed to your mind is the software. So now, if the information has been corrupted, if the information has been limiting you, if the information has been pulling you down, it is time to begin to do what? Uninstalling that information and putting new information into your mind. And one of the ways you can do that is to engage in vigorous reading. Read books in areas you are struggling with. If you are struggling with procrastination, get books that teach you how to deal with procrastination. If you are struggling with timidity, get books that teaches you how to deal with timidity and how to become confident. Read books and read wide. Another way is for you to listen to people's messages. Listen to people's messages. Another way is to talk to yourself. Repeat the positive word to yourself. Tell yourself, I cannot fail. Tell yourself, I am bigger than this. Tell yourself, I can do this. Tell yourself, I am intelligent. Speak to yourself. I'm strong. I'm intelligent. I am powerful. I'm a success. Speak to yourself. By so doing, what you're doing is that you're removing that information that is in you that has been holding you down, and you are putting in new information. Now, for our time, I'll just look at two other ways we can initiate change within us, and we'll call it a day because of our time. There's so much we can talk about this subject. The second way we can initiate change is for you to change the way you think about things, about circumstances, about situation. One, you must begin to develop a positive attitude to life. They say there are two ways you can look at life. You can either look at life as someone who looks at the cup half full, or you can look at life as someone that looks at the cup half empty. You know, if you pour water into a glass cup up to the half point, say the glass is this high, and you pour water up to the half point, people can choose to look at the water in that cup in two different ways. They can choose to look at it that the cup is half full, or you can choose to look at it as that the cup is half empty. So which perspective are you taking to life? Are you looking at life as half full or half empty? Do you have a positive attitude to life, or do you have a negative attitude to life? Now, everything that happens to you, do you look at the opportunities in them, or do you look at the challenges in them. You see, they say winners will always see opportunities in challenges, but losers and failures will always see challenges in opportunities. So you decide. But one of the ways you can begin to initiate change and bring the best out of your life is for you to begin to change the way you look at things in life. You must begin to change the way you look at circumstances. Not everything that happens to you is evil. Not everything that happens to you is bad. Not everything that happens to you has come to destroy you. No, look at the opportunity in it. Look at the opportunity in it. You see that sometimes you see the exact same thing happen to two different people. For example, people that lose their children. You see, one will take advantage of it and build a foundation to ensure that that same thing does not happen to anybody else. And before you know it, he makes fortune. He leaves a legacy. But the other one will self-destruct. We go into drug. We go into alcoholism. We become an alcoholic. And we just completely destroy their life. Why? Because they have two different perspectives to life. While one is seeing an opportunity in the things that are happening to him or her, the other one are seeing what? Challenges, difficulties. Oh, I'm done for. God doesn't love me. And some people will even completely denounce God and say God does not exist. Because if God exists, why would such an evil happen to me? You see, that's a topic for another day. But it all depends on your perspective to life. That's the second way that you can initiate change. And the last discussion for today is the fact that change the way you think about change. You see, like I said, change will always happen, with or without you. Change will happen whether you plan for it or not. Change will happen whether you like it or not. But you must begin to have a different perspective about change. You see, change is a good thing. See change as a good thing. See the benefits in change and seize the opportunity that happens. For example, you are working in a workplace and your company announced to you that, oh, there's going to be a change of management because they need to do things in a certain way. They're going to introduce different software and all that. That is an opportunity. See it as an opportunity and begin to upskill yourself and begin to train yourself, because you never can tell what will happen in the future. But if you sit down and say, okay, you know what, this is the only thing I know how to work with, I tell you the truth, though, look for somebody else to replace you. That is why it is important. When things are changing around you, see opportunities in change. See opportunities in change and seize it and benefit from it. Secondly, unless you give up something valuable, you will never be able to truly change at all. Unless you give up something valuable. You see, some people hold on to the past. They hold on to things for too long. I tell people most of the time, I say, if you have a shirt or a dress in the wardrobe and you've not worn that dress for 6 months, you don't need it. Give it out. If you have a pair of shoes and for 6 months or to a year you've not worn it, that shoe doesn't belong to you. Give it out. Because you will never, ever truly understand the potential that awaits you until you give up something valuable. And you see, change demands that we give up most of the time. Change demands that we give up most of the time. Give up that thing that you are holding up to. Give it up. And you see that, there's a parable that says that a closed hand can never receive anything. For you to receive anything, you must do what? Open your hands. Means you must give what you have. Give. Now, for example, in our community, for example, you see a lot of people who cannot feed. You see a lot of people who cannot even pay their house rent. You see a lot of people who cannot go to school. You see a lot of orphans out there who have the potential to become great in life, but there's nobody to support them. Give. Support them with your resources. Support them with your resources. And you begin to see that as you begin to do that, as your hand is open, you begin to bless other people, you see that a lot of things will start coming your way. And that is one of the other ways that you can begin to initiate change in your life. You must begin to give up things that are valuable. Nothing should hold on to your soul. Nothing should ever hold on to your soul. Nothing should have a control over your soul. You should be able to give up anything that you want to give up. Never underestimate anybody, because the person you help today might become your savior tomorrow. The gate man you see today might become your boss tomorrow. Never underestimate what you will gain by giving up what you have. Don't be afraid to give up what you are holding up to. Don't be afraid to give up what you are holding on to. That is one of the ways you can initiate change in your life, by giving. Give your time. Like I said, invest in people. Give your time. Invest in a product. And you never can tell the returns that you can get from it. So you see, in summary, what have I been saying? Time is very precious. Time must be invested. Time must be put to proper use. And how can we put time to proper use? By planning. You can only put time to proper use only if you plan for time. And why must you plan for time? Is because change will always happen. And if you don't plan for change, you will waste time. And if you waste time, you will waste your life. So on that note, I just want to say thank you very much for giving me your time today. I hope you've enjoyed today's session, and I hope you've been blessed by it. I just want to encourage you. I want to remind you that please subscribe to the channel. Just hit the notification bell so that you get notification every time the video is published or is uploaded to YouTube. I just want to say thank you. Thank you very much for your time. God bless. Bye.